The 2023 diplomacy season is in the heat of summer, and the play has been absolutely scorching all across the globe. But there's nothing like a little mid-season standings reveal to splash some cold water all over your hopeful faces. Gargle down that sunscreen and polish your old beach sneakers, because this is the DBNI Countdown Show.
Welcome to the first DBNI Countdown Show of the 2023-24 season. I'm your host, Bryan Pravel, and I'm joined by my fellow co-host and probably someone's pick for diplomacy player hotter than these record-breaking temperatures, Zachary Moore. Hey, Zach, look at that. It's a new season, and I'm changing up the script by starting with a compliment.
It's beautiful, Bryan. Thank you. I'm truly proud to see you displaying so much growth in more ways than one.
We're on the back half. Boy, I can't even come back from that one. We're on the back half of diplomacy's summer stretch, and events are coming in faster than we can keep up with. 4 tournaments have been added to our standings, and for the first time ever, we're including league standings as they're played. This means that each month the DBNI standings will reflect changes in the individual league standings.
That's right, Bryan. And for those initial standings, we are including finalized results from the Cascadia Open, from Whipping, from the North American DipCon at DixieCon, and from the Regatta Open in Denver. We also have included in the standings progress for the Virtual Diplomacy League, as well as the Tour of Britain. Now, Bryan, we are working with Nexus Press League and French Language Diplomacy League organizers to collect their latest standings. These events qualify, but their results have not yet been added to the standings. And also for you to note, while recording, we received notification that the Online Diplomacy Championship has completed. All of these events will be added when our standings are updated next month. Something to look forward to.
Yeah, and in a rare moment of seriousness on the Countdown Show, I do want to set some expectations. Keeping all of the data from these independent events in sync requires a lot of effort from both the event organizers and the DBNI Countdown team. Brandon Fogel in particular makes a huge time investment to gather this data and to keep it up to date. I'm asking players to show some grace as we work on improving our workflows and learn how to manage these standings in a more dynamic way. We're trying to be as transparent as possible. Full copies of our data can be found on the diplobn.com website. We're trying to show our work, so if you notice any errors, please let us know.
Thank God all that boring stuff is over. Coming onto the screen now, Bryan, we see the winners of qualifying face-to-face tournaments so far, and we've had great turnout at these events, Bryan. You can see 3 out of the 4 have met the requirements for an automatic qualification.
Yeah, and in the virtual face-to-face category, they're a great way to get tournament experience, even if you're unable to travel to a face-to-face event. To date, no eligible virtual tournaments have concluded, but based on previous history, it's likely the VWDC Summer Classic and the Virtual Diplomacy Championship will be eligible.
Moving to the extended deadline category, the Online Diplomacy Championship just concluded, and as a major event, the winner, Red Candle, will receive an automatic invitation to the DBNI if they become eligible by participating in at least one virtual face-to-face game this season. Olympus Season 1 will be wrapping up soon, and its winner will also receive an automatic invitation due to the size of that event.
And all of our virtual leagues are underway. We won't know for sure until the end of the season, but based on past history, it's likely that all winners will receive an automatic invitation due to the size of those events.
Now, before we see this month's standings, a quick reminder to you out there that the Online Diplomacy Championship, Nexus Leagues, and French Virtual League standings have not been added to the current DBNI standings. They're going to be added next month. I don't want to hear you asking where they are. They're next month. Don't ask where their standings are. They're next month. With that caveat, let's see those standings, Bryan.
All right, got it. Next month it is. Here we go. Our first look at the DBNI standings of the 2023-24 season. Coming in first place, we have DBN analyst Mikalis Kamaridis, who showed the adage those who can't become analysts is not universally true by winning what is likely to be the largest face-to-face event of the season and becoming North American DBCon champion in the process.
And Bryan at number 2, Matthew from Washington, showed us that he's one in a trillion, playing with beauty and grace on his way to a victory at Whipping after showing his congeniality by accepting a humble third at Cascadia.
One event, 3 games, and a 100% top share. Everyone give it up for Diplomacy's favorite fighting Frenchman, Nicolas Taillet, who sits in 3rd place on the strength of yet another dominant performance in the Virtual Diplomacy League.
Well, number 4, and I've always said Ed Sullivan's drawn bow is afraid relationship on the other side of the board, and he is in midsummer form after winning regatta in front of his kids, who surely hope that all his charisma and none of his vices are hereditary.
Zach, I love when we get the opportunity to read these results blind, and I have no idea what's coming next. Coming in number 5, I am expecting the textbook definition of starting the season strong. Riaz Virani won Cascadia, first event of the season, and rode that momentum through the DBNI. His place in the DBNI is likely safe, but where in the standings he ends the season is a question many players will be keeping a close eye on.
Got my eye right on it, Bryan. And at number 6, Ben Kelman is the breakout player of the year in the 2023 VDL season, showing off with a massive 15 center board top and a 14 center split in the season's first 2 months. He'll almost certainly have a spot on the top board for Virtual Diplomacy's biggest league, leaving him just 1 strong board away from an auto bid to the big dance.
With top 7 finishes at both Cascadia and Dixie, veteran face-to-face player and avid cyclist David Miller has been riding the lead peloton on a trip around North America.
Turning the page now to places 8 through 14, and we'll start with Bradley Grace. Bradley Grace has all his biscuits in the Tour of Britain basket, but the proof is in the pudding as he seems locked into a podium finish with half a season still remaining. Can he pull through, or will he flush it all down the road?
Good question. If any Diplomacy World Champion could be called underrated, it would be Doc Bender. He doesn't play as often anymore, but he's a threat for the top position regardless of the format he's competing in. This year, he's in 8th place on the strength of his 2nd place result at DixieCon.
Finding himself in the top 7 of both virtual leagues, Jason Bennett has become Virtual Diplomacy's Mr. Consistent, topping a quarter of his games with 0 eliminations on the season.
Great to see Jason continuing his success from last year. Someone else that had some success last year and is back, number 11, Karthik Konath, has been one of the most active players on the circuit this season, playing at 4 events, including a strong 3rd place at Regatta.
Always in the mix, Karthik Konath, a huge finish at Regatta in Denver has Cameron Higby on the cusp of their first ever DBNI qualification. Cameron hasn't played in any other events, but even a modest result in 1 or 2 more events ought to solidify their place in the Invitational.
Hope to see Cameron get that virtual game to get that invite. Craig Mayer, we're afraid to ask how, but he appears to have learned a thing or two about whipping during his time living in Montana, coming in 2nd place at that tournament and 13th place overall.
Number 14, Brandon Dix skyrocketed up the VDL standings with a convincing and dominant performance in July. He's chopping descent and topping a whopping 40% of boards, while the DBNI hordes watch on helplessly.
In 14th place, Steve Cooley has placed 3rd at a DipCon 3 times in the past, the first time all the way back in 1990. This year, he continued that tradition, making it a 4th time and earning himself a 14th place in our standings.
Well, dapper Dave Roberts dressed to the nines at Cascadia, wearing a couple of perfectly tailored split tops to his podium walk. He was dressed down at Whipping months later, but his first impression of 2023 still lingers on the DBNI standings.
Well, take a screenshot, folks. This might be your only chance to see Zachary Moore as the highest-ranked DBN founder, besting second place Brian Preble and last place Brandon Fogel.
Number 18, Matthew Tottenchi sits fourth in the VDL standings on the back of a monster 14 center top as Turkey in the May games. Now, a lackluster showing at Whipping has left him with the slimmest of margins, but one more big score on the back half of the VDL Season 4 should cement his place in the top four and give him a strong case for DBNI qualification.
And in 19th place, we have the man, the myth, the Lepanto himself, Eddie Bursan. Eddie's been more focused on growing the hobby than winning tournaments of late and surprised the DBN broadcast team by making some aggressive moves at Regatta and earning himself a top 7 finish.
Well, at number 20, Nicolas Sahu-Gay went to the Bay in hopes of sparking a career renaissance and reminded us all that he knows how to get in formation on the stalemate line with a convincing third-place finish at Whipping.
If any Diplomacy World Champion could be called underrated, it would not be Doug Moore. After a short break from the game, he casually showed up at Dixie and placed fourth, despite the fact he only played 2 rounds. We're glad to see Doug back in these standings.
Well, it's the highway to the danger zone, Brian. Positions 22 through 28. Anything can happen. And one of those things is Peter Jurgen at 21, joining Doug Moore in 21st place after tying him at DixieCon. Peter returned to competitive diplomacy in style last season, playing in the famous 14-hour game at WDC in Carnage. Peter can go as far as his will to compete takes him.
That's pretty far some years. Speaking of going far, Tim Crosby, reigning king of the Tournament of Britain and one of the top seeds of last year's DBNI. Tim hasn't found the same success so far this season. Good news for Tim is that he's sitting in 23rd despite not having competed in a single tournament this year. There's lots of time left this season. I expect we'll see Tim playing in February.
Well, Chris Brand surged in round 3 of Whipping, falling just short of an epic comeback victory after starting the day as an afterthought. A face-to-face specialist with no help on the way from virtual or extended deadline play, Chris is going to need a massive result from an in-person tournament if he wants to stay on this list.
Well, keep your eyes on number 25, Cody Green, a player who's steadily been improving since he started playing in the Virtual Diplomacy League in the fall of 2022. Ranked 25th in the VDL at the end of last season, Cody's currently in 5th place in the VDL and has secured his place as one of the top 28 players this season.
Lots of improvement in his game, Brian. Number 26, a strong start to the season at Whipping is dwindling for Katie Gray, who has steered clear of virtual play so far this season. She'll need to hunker down inside during the winter months and pack in some games to make up the lost time.
Isaac Jukes is another name you should know. Active in both the Virtual Diplomacy League and the Tour of Britain. If Isaac continues to have success in those leagues, it's likely we'll see him in the DBN postseason.
And rounding out our top 28, it's been a slow start to the season for last year's breakout star, Johnny Gillum, who hasn't been able to find a big result at VDL and turned in a solid, if unspectacular, result at DixieCon. The King of New York is looking for a bigger bite of the apple as we round into the home stretch.
I like his chances. Let's take a look now at the players who just missed the cut in places 29 to 35. We're calling this our danger zone. In 29th, we have Mike Moore. 30th, Jackson Roberts. 31st, Emmett Wainwright. 32nd, Andrew Goff. 33rd, Adam Silverman. 34th, Keith Worstel. And 35th, Wes Ketchum.
Places 36 through 42, the bubble of the bubble. None other than Tanya Gill, Micah Blom, Yelt Kuiper, Andre Gribakov, Derek Myers, Christian Brown, and Jason O'Donnell. A few names that you did not expect to see that low.
Yeah, there's some really big names on this list, and I expect, it's early in the seasons. We're going to see some movement, and that's going to keep these standings exciting. So, Zach, new players are the lifeblood of this hobby. One of my favorite parts of each season is watching our rookies take on the Diplomacy Blue Bloods and challenge them for their place in the top 28. Since its establishment in 2020, we've seen rookie players make huge moves and establish themselves among Diplomacy's heavyweights.
Well, here are the top 7 rookies from the season so far, headlined by Derek Myers, Jason O'Donnell, and Nicholas De La Tour. Following closely behind them are Brian Lee, a quote-unquote rookie, Jason Clymer, Gabriel Bierzu, and Edwin Lopez. A lot of exciting names on this list, Brian. I've seen some of them play, and some of them do not look like rookies.
Yeah, we had some debate amongst the board as to how to define a rookie, and ultimately we decided if they've never played a game in the DBN event, then they qualify as a rookie. So there's some pretty big names. It's exciting to see them come back, but also always fun to see the truly new players as well. So, Zach, every year, this time of year, summertime stretch creates kind of the baseline for the narratives that we talk about for the rest of the season. This upcoming wave of tournaments has a lot of variation in both geography and format. It's going to make for some interesting back and forth. Let's take a look at some of these upcoming events.
And turning our attention now to the upcoming events on the DBNI calendar, we'll start with Nexus Press League, Next Wave launching July 31st in the Nexus League's server. After that, we will turn the page to the Virtual Diplomacy League playing out via voice chat on Discord Saturday, August 12th. Then it'll be back in person for the World Diplomacy Championship in Bangkok, Thailand. You won't want to miss it. August 17th through 20th. And we will wind down the summer with the VWDC Summer Classic, played on Discord via voice August 25th through 27th with time zones across the world. And the Tour of Britain will be back with league play on September 8th, rounding into the final third of its season. And Weasel Moot in Chicago, Illinois will take place September 29th through October 1st. You won't want to miss Weasel Moot in Chicago.
Yeah, really looking forward to Weasel Moot. That's my home tournament. Zach, I think I saw you're signed up, so both of us will be there. We look forward to seeing anyone who's able to make it. Sabia Huja puts on a great tournament. Really looking forward to that. And then a couple others that I just want to highlight. Of course, if you're able to travel to Thailand, World Diplomacy Championship, that's the one tournament. If you're only able to make one face-to-face event a year, try and make that one. Plus, this is our first time to see an event in Asia of this caliber. So really excited about that. And then the VWDC Summer Classic, we've fortunately had the return of face-to-face tournaments in force, but that has meant fewer opportunities to play in virtual events. This is a fantastic way for players to get in their minimum one virtual game requirement to qualify for the DBNI. And what I love about the VWDC Summer Classic is that it is focused on creating game times that are convenient for players all around the world. So if you don't have the means or time or ability to travel, this is a great way to get that tournament experience. So Zach, that wraps up our show today. Season is off to a really strong start. What are your thoughts about what we've seen and where we're heading?
Brian, I just want us to focus on our last half of the season on these players, and we see them every year that surge into the top of the standings. Names that we've seen around the hobby for a year, 2 year, maybe even 5 years, that have been toiling away, waiting for their breakout moment. And every year, 1, 2, or 3 of them finally pop. And this year, we got a couple that are popping. We talked about Ben Kellman sitting in 6th, Cody Green in the top 25. A couple of players that plugged away, took some lumps, and now they're starting to reap the rewards. The back half of the season is where you make that pay off. You can't fall apart. You can't run out of gas. I'm excited to see how they hold it together as we head into the winter, Brian.
Yeah, so am I. I love seeing the new players come in. That's helps keep the game interesting and helps keep our blue bloods humble.
Yes.
That's something that every diplomacy player needs a little bit of help with. So with that, that kind of wraps up our show. So I would like to thank everyone for watching. If you have any questions or feedback, you can reach us at info@diplobn.com. You can also post in the comments. You can also find most of the DBN crew, myself and Zach included, on the VWDC Discord server. That's a great way to reach us. Stop by, say hi, post in the comments, make predictions, talk some smack. Really appreciate everybody watching the show. And if you enjoyed what you're watching, please give it a like. Please subscribe to our channel and get out there and play some diplomacy. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.
Dapper Dave, not Dapper Dan. That's the whole thing.
You can't help but follow Dapper. The word Dapper Dan has to follow. So, all right, here we go.
It's beautiful, Bryan. Thank you. I'm truly proud to see you displaying so much growth in more ways than one.
We're on the back half. Boy, I can't even come back from that one. We're on the okay, this time I'm gonna have to cut that. But we are keeping that in.
Okay.
Okay.
I've never got you that bad, but I've never gotten you like that before.